Hey everybody, this is Robbie with Robbie's Reptiles. I've been getting a lot of questions lately on what constitutes good head structure. So I thought that we'd make a quick video going over what I would consider to be the general standard that I've seen throughout the hobby. Keep in mind all of this is opinion, and a lot of aspects when it comes to head structure does rely on a personal preference, but there definitely seems to be a market trend or just a general hobby trend for what would constitute good and bad head structures. And it comes down to really 3 or 4 main attributes. You have the crests, which are the actual spikes that are on the gecko's head. You have the size of the gecko's head structure, and you also have the direction in which the head structure is pointing, or known as the flop factor that a lot of us say. Now, there is also another aspect when it comes to head structure, such as the snout length. I'm not going to be getting into that. It seems to be from the genetics guide that Little Monsters put out. There seems to be a genetic weakness tied to shorter snouts. So I tend to just not pay attention to that at all, or at least I don't seek out shorter snouts. But if we are talking about what it seems the whole market really likes, it's short snouts, really large floppy heads. So ideally, the Crested Gecko with the best head structure is going to knock it out of the park in all 3 of these categories, being the crests, the size of the head, as well as the direction of the head's crests. So first we have size, right? The general size of a Crested Gecko head usually determines whether it's good or bad. Usually the best is when it's large. You know, the wider the better, as big as you can get really seems to be what people desire. There's also instances of geckos having a really large head, but not very good crests or direction, making it not look rather appealing. Bad head structure, in my opinion, would be something that is really small crests, pointing straight up, with a very narrow, or as some of us say, bald head structure, meaning that there isn't any sort of floppiness to the head. It's almost like it's just like this on the skeleton, and I have some examples of Crested Geckos that are like that. Very good head structure would ideally have very large and organized crests, because you can also have head structure that might be really big, it might be floppy and pointing down, but if the crests are like jumbled up and kind of messy, some might see that as undesirable. I know that my female lily white Ishtar, a soft scale lily white, she has all of these attributes. She has a really large head, it flops down, and she has really big crests, but she almost has like double crests and overlapping crests, rather than single, perfectly neat and organized crests, which is the most ideal. By far, the best example that I would have of that is my new male possible super soft scale Cowboy from Mindful Living Geckos. He is by far the best head structure I've seen on any Crested Gecko. I would say ever, that I've ever seen, even on the internet or in person. I think it is the biggest, the cleanest, the most organized, and also flops down just the right amount. Another thing to consider with head structure is the proportion to the body. I have thick, my really big, like 85-gram female. She has pretty decent head structure. If she was a lot thinner, she would have amazing head structure. But the problem is that her body is disproportionately large compared to her head. So you might be thinking, well, Robbie, if there's good and bad head structure, why would anybody buy something with bad head structure? If it's simply good and bad, why would anybody buy bad? Well, I also have a couple of geckos with poor head structure. Not only just my cappuccinos, my axanthic as well, even my super soft female that I just got from AC Reptiles, I would say she has the worst head structure of any super soft I've ever seen. But luckily, the reason that you would be okay with buying something with bad head structure is it is proven to be extremely easy to improve upon through offspring and through breeding with geckos with really big head structure. So if I got a gecko that had practically no head structure and was completely bald, and I paired it with Cowboy, all of the babies would end up having, 7 out of 10 head structure, because it's such a dominant feature with Crested Geckos. And luckily, if you have a gecko that has such insane and impressive head structure, it will very easily transfer over to the offspring, which is a godsend for us, because that means that we don't have to be so picky about what we're getting if we know that in the end we'll be able to improve the head structure, 3 or 4 years down the line. Let's say we're working on making spotless axanthics that are super soft and visual axanthic fraps. It's okay to have a cap that doesn't have the best head structure. It's okay to have an axanthic that doesn't have the best head structure. If you're going to be incorporating different geckos later down the line with the offspring that have insane head structure, like my possible super soft Cowboy, then you can start strategically planning your pairings for the future and working on lines while keeping that in mind, because bigger head structure will sell a lot easier, as well as just generally look more impressive. There's some people that might not think that big heads are nice, and they might actually like bald with giant crests. More power to you. I'm just saying what I've generally seen the entire market shift towards and prefer is what I'm noting in this video today. So to conclude this video, good and bad head structure, as long as there's a means to an end, it isn't the worst thing to get a gecko with poor head structure. If it has the best pattern you've ever seen, or it has the most snowflaking, the most drip, the best lily white expression, the cleanest dorsal, whatever it may be, a gecko that has poor head structure, you know that you can improve upon it as long as you pair it to something with better head structure, or even, best case scenario, with great head structure. You can improve the head structure of the offspring, and at the end of the day, when you reach your 5-year goal for that project, getting 1 or 2 geckos that have poor head structure won't be devastating to your end goal if you pair smartly and correctly. But hopefully I gave you guys the tools to be able to go out, when looking to purchase your next Crested Gecko, to determine which one you believe would have good or bad head structure, which one fits your projects the best, and really it all does come down to preference, but this is just what I've generally seen and as well as my own preferences and opinions.